friends. Welcome to the comedy section of Stay In for Tal Day. My name's Steve Cross. I want to start by saying don't drink anything that Rachel Wheeley makes. Apparently she believes the ingredients to the Pangalactic Gargle Blaster are whatever shit you happen to have in your house, plus hope and desperation. What I happen to have in my house is Romanian plum brandy made in Transylvania, which I will now pour into some homebrew. There we go. Pangalactic Gargle Blaster. Delicious. It's not delicious. It's appalling. Don't do it. Never do it. Because we're in a comedy section, I wanted to do some comedian-style audience interaction with you. So I'm going to ask you things. I want you all to shout out the answers together. You might be thinking, oh, it's a bit weird to be shouting out the answers to things sitting in our house. I am in my shed drinking Transylvanian plum brandy mixed with homebrew, dressed as Dirk Gently, talking to you. Whatever you're doing is not this weird. So the first question I have for you all is, do you love the Hitch-Hikers Galaxy and the Guide to the Galaxy even, and the works of Douglas Adams? And the second question I have for you all today is, have you got your towel? And the third question I have for every single one of you is, are you having a wonderful time at Tal Day so far? My name is Steve Cross, and I believe that there are two different ways to read The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, in the way that there are two different ways to read everything. There's a simplistic way, where it's some tales of very funny things and aliens and flying around and towels. And there's a deeper way, where there are messages encoded within the text put there by Douglas Adams specifically to give messages to those of us who are more academic, more scholarly, more grown up in the way that we read. And this is the way that I read The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So this is my fourth Tal Day, and 3 years ago, because that's how maths works, 3 years on one day ago, I used the text of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy to prove that the world ends on May the 1st, 1980 in The Hitchhiker's World. Yes, Douglas Adams accurately described the world of the 1st of May 1980 despite writing the book in 1978, thus proving he had psychic powers. The second stand-up for Tal Day, I proved that the important number in The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is not 42, it is actually 43. And although you can see the first show, you can see the End of the World show on YouTube, you can also listen to it as part of the BBC Boring Talks podcast. The 43 set, all video evidence, has apparently mysteriously disappeared, I think due to the number of references to Satan that there were in the set, because it seems that Douglas Adams was getting a lot of his powers from Satan. Last year, I put the entire text of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy in alphabetical order, found the bits that then sounded like they were cryptic crossword clues, solved them, they're all places in the UK, I mapped them all to find where all the lines crossed to try and work out where there might be a hidden treasure. I think it's somewhere near Banbury. I need to do some more analysis. But this year I wanted to take on a much bigger issue, something that really matters to Hitchhikers fandom, and I wanted to talk to you about towels. Very early on in the text, Adams introduces this idea. It says a towel is about the most massively useful thing an international hitchhiker can have, and your interstellar hitchhiker can have. And you're thinking, so here he's kind of setting up what you might call a sonic screwdriver for the text, a thing that he can use to get himself out of every corner that he writes himself into due to bad writing or lazy writing. Every time he has to meet a deadline very quickly, rather than having a god descend in a cage from above, he can just say they do a towel and it goes away. And he's doing it very early in a kind of Chekhov's gun style scenario. So this is very much kind of Chekhov's sonic screwdriver, set it up in Act 1, use it in Act 3. And look at all the things that a towel is used for. So the first thing I wanted to do to make sense of this, we're told lots of things that a towel could be used for in this section of the book, but let's look at what the towel is actually used for. So for this, I've used the trilogy. I've used the 3 books, which you could describe as the Excitement, Adventure and Really Wild Things books. I haven't used book 6 because it's by someone else. I haven't used books 4 and 5 because they seem to be mainly characters talking to each other about depression and various metaphors for depression, so I don't find them that interesting. So I've read the first 3, which most fans would call the good ones, and I've read them to find all the way through, is the real message of Hitchhikers you should carry a towel? So let's look what towels are used for in the actual books. They're used to wrap around your face so you don't know what's going on. That happens a couple of times in the books. They're used to clean things twice very quickly in succession. They're used to rub the dust off a thing, and they're also used as something that you can store vitamins and antidepressants in for later use. Those are 3 uses. The 4th use of a towel in these 3 books is you can knot it up and it makes a bag to put Scrabble tiles in, and that is it. That is all the things that towels are used for in these books, which made me think, So Douglas Adams isn't using these to get the characters out of problems, and he's not really using it to get himself out of problems. So given that he's set up that idea, he's introduced the idea that towels solve all problems, towels don't solve all problems, what is he wanting us to take away? What is he actually selling to us as the answer to all problems? So I went looking for some terms that might be relevant. The first one I looked for, because I thought Douglas Adams famously portrayed himself as an atheist. Those of you who read more deeply will know he's actually a Satanist. But were there hidden pro-religious messages? So I looked for Christianity as the solution to all problems. You'll be pleased to know Christianity appears no times in these 3 books. The word Christianity does not appear at all. There's a lot of mention in these books of depression. There's a lot of confusion between paranoia, depression, manic depression, various other mental problems. We'll talk about that next year. That will be next year's set. So I thought, well, antidepressants are mentioned a few times, but what about a more modern way of thinking about depression? Maybe what Douglas is trying to sell us as the answer to problems is mindfulness. So I searched for mindfulness. There are no references to mindfulness in the 3 books. And then finally I thought, what if he's trying to crack the American market? The American market's very lucrative. What do Americans use to solve all their problems? But I searched and there are no mentions of the phrase assault rifle anywhere in these books. So what is the word that is mentioned a lot? What comes up over and over and over again? So the word towel is mentioned 37 times in these 3 books. The word drink, however, is mentioned 77 times. Beer is mentioned 7 times. Wine is mentioned 21 times. Spirit is mentioned 26 times. Whiskey is mentioned 10 times. And gin, in just these 3 books, let's not forget, a towel is mentioned 37 times. Gin is mentioned 254 times. Now, many times the word gin is embedded in other words like beginning or imagination, but it is mentioned 254 times within there, and that's only the normal spelling of gin. That doesn't count all the weird ones in that bit about gin and tonics at that time. To give you an idea how much booze there is in this book, the scene where Zaphod and Trillian split up would leave you having to lie to your doctor about your habits. The scene where Zaphod Beeblebrox walks into the restaurant at the end of the universe would leave you the front cover of a tabloid with a story about how people wouldn't abuse themselves. The floating party would end your life. To give you an idea how much drinking is in these series of books, forget doing a drinking game where you drink every time they drink. If you poured a drink on yourself every time they drink and towelled yourself down every time they use a towel, you would drown. That is the sheer amount of booze that is in these books. So what is booze being used for? Let's have a double check. Can booze be used for everything that you use a towel for? Number 1, towels are used so that you don't notice things. Yes, booze can be used to not notice things. Can booze be used to clean things like a towel? Yes. It's a slightly extreme form of cleaning the entire marble off the top of the bar, but it is a form of cleaning. And can booze be used? Let's not forget that you can suck a towel for antidepressants. Does booze in these books work as an antidepressant? Yes, I think it's very clear that it does. It works in both ways as an antidepressant. It works in that it stops you caring as much about the bad things in your life, but it also works in that it gives you the energy and the power and the composure to deal with issues that you wouldn't otherwise be able to deal with. So booze can do everything that a towel can do, apart from you can't make a bag for Scrabble tiles out of booze as much as you might want to. But booze can do a number of other things. Let's see what problems for our characters Douglas Adams solves by throwing some booze at them. First of all, booze makes matter transportation comfortable, which would explain why Captain Kirk used to go on every single away mission. Booze can help you make new friends. Booze can be used to pay the most important man in the universe for his time twice. Booze can be used to fly a starship. Booze can be used to fly yourself. Booze can be used as part of the equation that makes you immortal. And booze, of course, can be used to cook your dinner and to recover from a slightly traumatic experience. So there's a real strong message through all of the book, is that every time a problem comes along, booze is the answer. Rather than a towel. Forget a towel being the most important thing for a hitchhiker to have. You'll notice that Ford is never excited when he gets somewhere and there's a really interesting towel shop. The first question is never, where can I get a towel? It's, where can I get a drink? And the problem with all of this is that this book is these books, in fact, are a very thinly veiled advert for alcohol. It's increasingly clear that Douglas Adams was in the pocket of some very large distillers and brewers and was being used by them to get around the British laws around the advertising of alcohol. So, for instance, in England, in Britain, it's illegal to talk about alcohol in an advert in a number of ways. And so I went to the Advertising Standards Agency blog. They have a wonderful blog post called Avoiding Poor, that's POUR, decisions when advertising alcohol. I mean, I've got some advising shit pun decisions when writing your blog advice for them, but that's a different thing. And it says on this blog that claiming that alcohol has therapeutic qualities, which is exactly what it's used for in the book, it takes pain away, it takes anxiety away, or is the answer to overcoming boredom or loneliness or other problems, all the problems booze solves in these books, will pretty much always break the law. So it's very clear that these books, as much as they were saying to you buy a towel, and I know many of you have spent good money on towel-related merchandise. You've lined the pockets of big hitchhikers by buying their merchandise with a towel. The actual real message behind the book was, I'm afraid. But the trouble is, even this, it turns out, is something that a towel is not as good at as booze is. So friends, remember, every time you drink, it's because Douglas Adams put the idea in your brain subliminally that drinking would solve all your problems. And with that, I'm going to finish off this Romanian prum brandy. Prum, that's how much I've had. A Romanian prum brandy mixed with homebrew. My name has been Steve Cross. Look after yourselves, friends. Good night.